several committees. Got a sister, Rosanna Hawkins, thank you for popping up for your support. And I will say that it's good to be back in the house of the Lord at any time. But it's also on this Family and Friends Day, good to be here with you all. It's good to know it's been a many years since I've been to AME Family and Friends Day. So it's good to see that I see faces that are still family-ish, and that most of y'all are still looking friendly. I don't want to leave any guesswork, but I haven't been to a Family and Friends Day or to a church. I have been to a church. I now currently attend Anderson United Methodist Church, but I haven't been to a Family and Friends Day AME church until I darkened the steps of 1650 Top Street. For those of y'all who ain't never been there, some young folks have never seen it. That's the Google destination pinpoint for the Great Island Temple AME Church, located in the western side of Jackson, Washington, D.C. That was a place where I got a lot of my upbringing that I'm so grateful for. My parents, Cornelius Green and Tommy Green. That's also why I was bestowed with a lot of the relationship building and indoctrination of our church that made me who I am today. So for that, I am grateful.
All right.
And Charles asked me when I came in, I said, Charles, I'm okay with subject verbs and making them agree sometimes, but I am not as good as some people at cutting out a prepared speech as I speak, so y'all forget all of this. A couple of quick notes. I always like to let people kind of get an idea of who I am before I start speaking, because it kind of helps me through the process. I will say, starting off, that it is 2 p.m., so some of you all have already been to church. Some of y'all have been home, came back, and some of y'all got the itis, and some of y'all got the mindset of, is every team playing right now for NFL? Y'all watching? So I will do my best to not keep you all any longer than I have to. I was reminded of a friend of mine who told me, he's a pastor, he said that he found out in his churches that most people that he deal with find little distinction between a long church service and a hostage situation. Then I have to. Another helpful note about the speech for today is I could not figure out, everybody like the 3 quick points of, I did do this, your life would be great. I could not figure out what those 3 points were going to be until I had almost completed writing the speech. The bad news is, you all have absolutely no idea how long it is. But the good news is, when you hear me reference my points, you know I'm almost done. So real quick, we'll go ahead and go into the meat of our discussion for today. I want to mention that as I was growing up, thinking back on church, though seemingly redundant and boring as a child, I grew to appreciate all the protocols that we do in the AME church. And that even though they were rehearsed for service, they were my life's preparation for daily praise for risen Savior. Practices like doxology, where we sang songs that taught me that God was almighty and a blessed Trinity. Resuscitation of the words of the psalmist during the call to worship, where I learned that those that be planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish. Where I learned that I should bridle my tongue and monitor my thinking, because I wanted the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart to be acceptable in God's sight, because I recognize Him as my Lord, my strength, and my Redeemer. The Decalogue, where I learned that I should love the Lord with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and that love is made real in my walk with Christ when I learn to share it with my neighbor. And if I'm honest, I learned just as much from my ritualistic practice that we call the benediction. Not just because I always knew that it was time to go, but because benediction highlighted one of the highest professions of faith through the Hebrew word amunah, which we pronounce amen. Though conducted at the end of service, the practice of benediction stands as our present-day declaration of certainty over our expectation of what God is going to do for us in our future. Hashtag it is so. I think it is very befitting that on this day of homecoming that you all decided to look to the apostolic correspondence of Paul as he spoke to the Ephesians. I like the theme of one church, of one spirit, because it invokes a warm Thanksgiving type of a feel that lets us be more mindful of thinking of others and shifting our hearts towards service and gratitude. It also makes sense as Ephesus was the vibrant mecca of religiosity, a place that drew people from all walks of life together for all manner of spiritual purposes. However, coming together in those days did not always mean that everybody knew Christ or wanted to. It often meant that speaking God's truth was met with struggles, persecutions, and imprisonment. I remember reading about Paul as a young child and thinking that this brother stayed in jail one time and he was out. And like many of us today, when we see our leaders experiencing any public pain, suffering, or stress associated with something new, we often need someone to encourage and motivate us to reassure our faith. Amen. And as you come to tell to read from the Bible, you can tell that the people of Ephesus was like us Christians. They needed a whole lot of motivating. I always like Paul because I believe that he operated in his faith with a spirit of humility. I believe he was always excited to be spreading the good news of God, but I don't ever think he forgot about his Damascus experience. His life offers a comforting message that there is always opportunity to be forgiven and restored. His life also reminds us to be prepared to deal with the Peters in our world, who regardless of how much you try to grow, how much you try to be better, there will always be someone who trying to remind you where you came from. Paul is a good example of how we should not allow our past to define our future. And even though Paul, as a persecutor of Christians, is an extreme example on changing your ways, shifting from what you used to do, what you're going to do, doesn't always have to be so dynamic. I'll give you some modern day Paul examples. Like me, you might have been one of those people who was a late morning starter. But now you're one of those people who like to get to work early and on time. Inevitably, you're going to have that one coworker who comes up to you and says, "Oh, I see you got your alarm clock fixed." You might be that student who struggled all the first part of the year, but now you can buckle down, Adam, got your stuff together, and you're making A's. You're going to have that teacher who comes up to you and says, "Now, why you couldn't do that at the beginning of the year?" You might be that person married or about to start a new relationship. But you couldn't for the life of you back in the day get a relationship and make it last. You're going to have that person who shows up and walks around you who said, I wonder how long this one going to last. Or you might be that person who in college borrowed more money than you lent. But now that you're grown, you have that good job as a finance director of your department. You're going to have that old school friend who comes up to you and says, "Now, who letting you monitor their money?" A look into Paul's life helps us to better value the awesome gift that is God's redemptive and restorative faith. More importantly, it helps us to remain consciously aware that as we ourselves are sinners saved by grace, who desire favor over our own lives, that we must be willing to acknowledge and accept the manifestation of God's unmerited favor when we see it on someone else.
All right.
Hashtag stop being petty and getting folks a second chance. It is in this spirit of spiritual acceptance that I believe we gain the greater message in between the lines of Paul's letter. Paul's letter to the Ephesians came to praise God for all his great works and remind them of God's desire to choose and bless a covenant people, and that through Jesus Christ, all of us can now be adopted into that community as a family of one. However, as Paul pointed out, he had to tell them that you are also a multi-ethnic community from every shade of background, different folks. So though I encourage you to push towards coming together as one, this move towards unity should never be confused with uniformity. Paul said that the world don't move to the beat of just one drum. He said what might be right for you may not be right for some. It's right there, John. It's right there. That to get into heaven and to learn God takes different strokes. Paul saw that Ephesus was stumbling in his walk towards being an accepting and inclusive people. So he had to remind them that Jesus, the old Mosaic law, which often kept us separate, had been done away, and that now we're in a place where Jesus' preference, God's desire is that we live in wall-less communities. Somebody say wall-less. Somebody say hashtag 1045 wall-less. I feel like I know you all, so I hope that what I'm about to say no one takes personal. And I also am one of those people who I like when people preface stuff by saying no offense, or with all due respect, because whatever's going to come next is going to use your religion. Paul expressed that God's desire is that we live in a wall-less community. Pastor, don't quote me on this in your next theological dissertation. But I interpret that to mean that no man-made barriers should exist to affordable housing. That no man-made barriers should exist to health care and better education.
That's right.
That no man-made barriers should exist for black-owned enterprises to have an opportunity to cable networks that white enterprises have access to. And that no one should be creating barriers to education for our kids. That if you ain't got the millions from your parents to break the rules to get into, that we can't have. Can we be real? In the words, Paul says that he felt God's desire was for us to build bridges and not walls. Then why the church folks who have the word, who know the word, act like they're too afraid to speak the word?
Come on.
One of my favorite truth poems written by the well-known pastor Martin Niemöller, look it up, German guy, goes like this. He says, first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and then there was no one left to speak up for me. Dr. Martin Luther King said it, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I recall the indelible Senator Alice Hardin saying, prayer is good in a prayer fight, but I'm gonna need you to do something else in a bear fight. And if that wasn't plain enough and simple enough for everybody to understand, Homeland Security put a message out to everybody to get everybody to look out for everybody else in 4 simple words. But what? See something? Say something. I'm about to ask you all some questions, and I don't want anyone to get offended. Operating in the spirit, but I want you to kind of get on the mindset of thinking what operating in a spirit of oneness may sometimes look like. I think we sometimes read stories of the Bible like Paul's, and we play out the Disney Plus version in our heads because it makes us feel better. But this also lends to us softening and diminishing the size of the struggle that comes when you're trying to shift people's hearts from the minds of our natural place of being selfish to a place of being selfless. So here's some questions to let you think. Where were you when you heard that Eric Garner was gasping for air on national TV as New York police officers ignored his pleas of, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I cannot breathe? Where were you when you heard that Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy having fun on a playground, was shot and killed by a police officer in Cleveland, Ohio because he was a little black boy who looked like a grown, menacing criminal? Where were you when the majority male religious elites of the nation rallied and picketed in conservative movements against women having the right to decide what they should do with their bodies, but then disappeared when it came time to fight for health care, education, and housing of those same minorities? Where were you when our bigot of a Mississippi governor came out in support of a racist president, promoted a senator who finds public hangings humorous, and compared black women having access to Planned Parenthood to a modern-day genocide of the African American community? Where were you? Were you on your phone texting somebody who you didn't know last year, and for all intents and purposes, you won't know this time next year? Were you in a beauty shop or getting your nails done? Or were you hanging with your boys or playing Fortnite? Or were you sitting in your prayer closet praying that someone else saw what you saw, but hoping that they would be brave enough to say something about it?
Yes.
As in the case of Paul, aka Saul of Tarsus, I don't believe that the past should be what defines our future.
Right.
With that said, maybe the more important question is, where will you be? Where will you be the next time they call for volunteers for the Parent-Teacher Association? Or where will you be the next time that the Salvation Army or the Student Plot announces that they have a shortage on supplies and they need the public's help? Or where will you be on election day when all the news reports have already predicted that voters will be apathetic, that they will stay at home and take nobody else to the polls? Where will you be? My brothers and sisters, whatever the future holds, when the question arises around building a more loving, tolerable, inclusive, just world, my hope is that each of us eagerly answers the call to promote a spirit of oneness. Real quick, 3 things I think will help us to develop a healthy spirit of oneness. First thing we've got to do is we've got to work to restore our sense of relationship. We have a tendency as human beings, it's nothing against us, we are fans of needing to label things so we know what they are. But that same tendency often leads us to create walls and barriers that separate us. We divide ourselves over things like the flag, incomes, fraternities and sororities, religions, sexual preferences, political parties, and sports teams. Y'all pray for Jackson State. We then develop an us versus them mentality and fail to speak up and speak out in the face of abuses, injustice, and discriminations when it does not hurt our side. Remember that relationships are about growing in those passions we have in common and respecting the differences that make us unique. Point 2. Remember to tell our rendition. Rendition just being interpretation or explanation of account of how things happen. We often let others, like the news, tell our stories, which is usually in a negative. We have got to replace our sense of self-hate with a better sense of self-love. It's not our fault. That feeling is something that comes from over 400 years of slavery and oppression. But we have got to stop letting people bash our kids and tell us what Mississippi schools can't do. Mississippi has graduated thousands upon thousands of students who have successfully entered the workforce. Thousands who have pushed the enrollments of schools like Jackson State to record highs. We have seen those students enter the graduate programs of MC, School of Law, UMC, School of Medicine, and JSU, School of Engineering. We've seen old school businesses like Big Apple Inn, E&L, and Bullis keep our fingers greasy and our blood pressures high. But we've also seen new growth in minority law firms, service firms in engineering and architecture, and countless medical centers and healthcare facilities. As African Americans, we are 43 million strong and nationally hold a buying power of roughly $1.1 trillion. With that amount of economic power, if we were a country, we'd be ranked 16th in the world of 196 countries. Our worth and our value in the world is unquestionable. But we have got to get to the point to where we're not letting Fox News tell our story. Lastly, we have got to reject the urge to retreat. In the words of my physical therapist who worked with me after I pulled my hamstring, the road to recovery will not be easy, but you have got to stay in the program if you expect to get well. You've heard it 1,000 times different ways. Tough times don't last, tough people do. In the age of Amber Geiger, hashtag 45, Putin, and Rudy Bad Boy Giuliani, we cannot afford to be complacent.
That's right.
In the age of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, we cannot afford to get tired and give up. In the age of Sandra Bland and Eric Garner, we must reject the proclivity to retreat. Don't come telling me how good you thought the movie Harriet Tubman was. But then you go ghost on me when I say, well, okay, well, let's go down here to the Capitol to march for these anti-voter voting rights that are suppressive to our people.
That's right.
Don't come tell me how emotionally moved you were by the movie The Hate You Give, then come up missing when I say I'm going to City Hall so I can meet to discuss and raise issues about police brutality and the shooting of unarmed black boys and black men. The up and coming generation of tomorrow's leaders have a lot before them. Let them see that you refuse to give up on them. As I close, I'll tell you these 4 quick things that I learned from my mother. I'm sure she learned from my grandmother, from my grandmother, that will help you at home, relationships, in church, and in your job. Number 1, don't go to bed. Rephrase it. Don't go to bed angry with anyone. 2, don't waste time arguing today on something that's not going to matter tomorrow. Leave nothing on the table, and you'll never feel like you lost. And at the end of the day, give until it hurts, because you'll never beat God given. I encourage each of you to daily take off the humanity and put on your armor of God and stay prepared to promote and defend a spirit of oneness in whatever place that God lands you. That's my speech for today, y'all. Thank you all for having me.